Have you ever had your heart broken? It's painful, isn't it? Maybe you've been through the pain of a relationship breakdown or a bereavement. Maybe you've been in a place of rejection where you've been pushed away. What made you feel better when that happened? As a child, we might recall running and falling over and scraping our knee and then wanting to run into a parent's arms. If we're a parent and we see a small toddler fall over and bang themselves and start crying, it's our natural instinct to scoop them up and hold them in our arms and comfort them. But some of us maybe never experienced that. Some of us never really experienced the touch and the affection that came with that. And consequently, when there's nobody there, when we're feeling vulnerable or when we're feeling hurt, it can create in us a sense of not feeling safe. It can create in us a sense of frozen emotions. And we can live for years with that unhealed pain. And as a result, that can sometimes make it difficult for us to experience intimacy. We have a Father who is a comforting Father. It's one of the names of the Holy Spirit, the Comforter. But the Holy Spirit and Jesus and the Father, the Trinity of God, part of the innate character of God is to want to comfort his children. And we're going to look a little bit more about that now. Let's return to a passage that we looked at when we looked at the I am statements of Jesus. In John chapter 11, we have the account of the resurrection of Lazarus. But let's focus on Mary and Martha today. Jesus gets a message that his good friend Lazarus is ill and is going to die. But instead of rushing to his side, he delays going. Clearly, Jesus has a bigger purpose in mind that's lost on everybody else around him. And sure enough, Lazarus dies. Jesus then goes with his disciples and is greeted first of all by Martha. And that greeting, it has this phrase, "If only you had been here, he wouldn't have died." How many times have you found yourself saying, "if only"? That's a common response to loss. It's a common response to pain. If only I hadn't done that. If only they hadn't done that. If only you had done this. If only this hadn't happened. We often find ourselves with exactly the same reaction as Martha, that we come to God sometimes and goes, if only you'd done this, then this wouldn't have happened. And Jesus comforts her, and he says, to her, he will live again. Do you believe that? He says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. And as the chapter goes on, we then see Mary come out, and sure enough, she does exactly the same thing. If only you'd been here, Jesus. And Jesus' response is quite interesting. I'm not sure I'd actually spotted this before. But Jesus' response is anger. And we see within Jesus a deep anger at the death of his friend, at the futility of the circumstances, but also at an outrage at the unbelief that people had. And as Jesus goes through this, what we see is the shortest verse in the Bible where it says, Jesus wept. Jesus felt the pain of the sisters. He felt the pain of loss. And even though we know the end of the story of how Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead, what we can see today is that Jesus wanted to comfort the sisters in their loss. So what about you? Can you identify with Mary and Martha, with that sense of, if only things hadn't happened that way? Have there been times in your life where you've needed comfort and the person who would comfort you either cannot or isn't there to do that? Have you ever found yourself in a place where you don't really understand why that comfort hasn't come? Circumstances haven't worked out as you would imagine? How much does it mean to us to realise that actually we have a God who not only understands what we're going through, but wants to comfort us? Living in an intimate relationship with Father means we have somebody who we can go to at all times to find comfort in our time of distress. And before we look at some of the barriers that we have to that, and some of the ways that we can find freedom through that. Perhaps we need to stop today and go, Lord, I need to draw close to you because there are circumstances I really need to know your comfort through.